Welcome back to the show. We got a really special episode today, and no news of the day, unfortunately. That's sad. No news of the world like the Queen album. But we are the champions. Anyway, we got a special episode today. Talking about an event called Winterfest. But first, we have a really special guest. We have Alexia. She goes to Cliffview Church with us. You want to tell the people hi?
Hi.
So first of all, Alexia, why don't you tell us what Winterfest is?
So Winterfest is basically a conference, a Christian-based conference, where you come and you listen to the word. There's some worship. We have certain guests come and just basically share a message and experience what the Lord has for you there.
Yes. Good job. That was great. So, that is what happened. It was a really great event. So, I want to ask you a question first. I know you've been asked this question like a grand total of like 1,000 times, but so it went for 3 days. So we got there Friday. There was a night service then. Saturday, there was a morning service and an evening service, and Sunday there was a morning service. Um, so which one was your favorite?
Probably the Sunday morning
Okay,
service.
that's good. If you don't mind my asking, you can just feel free to not answer this question. Was there anything that kind of like stood out to you?
A lot of it was what the last guy was saying when he was
Okay.
teaching. It was very close to heart type of things, and he went in depth into it.
Um, yeah. So, but just for those of you, real quick, we're gonna link all of these services down below. So go watch them because they're phenomenal. You know. So, yeah, it was really good. The worship was phenomenal. Yeah. Do you want to go into your
It's
notes now?
amazing.
Do you want to go in your notes? We have some points that we really want to hit on and talk about in this episode. So,
So, a lot of what I learned from Winterfest in all of the 3 days that we were there, it was 3 days, yes.
one whole day.
One
It was one whole day, but we were there for 3 days and
right.
2 half days.
Right. So, what I learned from it and what I took away from it, and a lot of what they were trying to push is that we didn't only have an experience with God there, but we can come home and bring that fire back with us and implement it into our daily life.
I think that a big problem with those, not a problem, a lot of things that happen with those events is that there's like a great fire that started there, and then like the second you get home, it's gone. It's burnt out. I think that's the thing that happens a lot of the times. You know, like with church camp, for example, I tend to see that a lot. So how do you think is a good way to kind of continue to stoke the fire?
I think staying in your word, because sometimes when we come back from these things, we're tired and we don't want to get into
Yeah.
it. But sometimes you just have to push through it and focus on what God did for you there and realize that He can still do it and He can still move even when you're not into the environment where you think He would.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. You want to keep going with
Any
your
points with that?
no, I think you really covered it. I think it is kind of another thing of. I think a lot of times people think, "Oh, God will keep the fire going." There's work on your part that needs to happen as well. You know, I think that it's like you said. It doesn't matter if you don't want to, you're lazy, whatever. You gotta keep getting in the word praying. I think you basically covered it. You got anything you want to add to that?
Shit. I'll just randomly interject when I have a question. You might have already answered it, but why do you think the fire extinguishes so quickly?
Because do you want to answer that or do you want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
All right. So I think part of the problem is that a lot of times I think people sometimes think that, oh, God will keep the fire going. Which He definitely can. I'm not limiting Him in any way. But a lot of times there is work on our part and there's a hunger that needs to be there. There's definitely a hunger that needs to be there and you need to want to do it. And then but it's like Alexia said, you need to be in the Word, you need to be praying, you need to be doing all those things in order to kind of keep that fire going. Kind of I'd say have a good understanding of that, you know? You want to keep going in your notes?
And playing off of that,
Okay.
one of my biggest notes I took there is that God can meet us anywhere regardless of the environment. Just because we're surrounded by believers and there's amazing worship music going on and amazing teachers going and getting into it, we can come back to our situations and implement those things so that we can see God moving not only there back at Winterfest, but also in our daily lives, which is what we should chase after as Christians and believers in God, so that we can understand like what He wants for us isn't only situational.
Yes. Because God's not limited to Winterfest or church camp or wherever. He can go and be wherever he wants to be, so he's not limited there. You know. I think you're totally right. I basically just said what you said, just with a different wording. But you have a question for that? What you just said? You got a question? Do you got a question for that?
So restate what you said.
God isn't limited. He can meet us anywhere, and he's not limited to Winterfest or church camp or wherever. He can do and be wherever he wants to be.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a question. That's not exactly something I can think of a question.
I mean,
That's not like
yeah, you don't. I mean, if you don't have a question, you don't have a question. It's not that big a deal.
problem.
No. Yeah. All right. What's your next point?
We can get caught up in our own lives so that we forget God can meet us anywhere and not only where we feel Him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we get really busy when it comes to our day-to-day life. You know, people, they have jobs, they have all of all these things, but I think it becomes the it kind of goes back to the fire thing. I think, you know, you need to really stay hungry, because I think when you stay hungry and you want that, I think it's when the best things happen, you know?
All right. I have a question. This is going to be directed at exactly what happened at the event. So, you had a service Friday night, yeah?
Mhm.
What did that guy talk about? Who was he? What did he say?
Oh, that's a fun story, Alexi. Why don't you take that one? I wasn't in that service.
Oh, right.
That's not a story for the show.
Oh, that's right.
Why don't you take that one? Because that's. You don't remember?
I don't have anything on that one.
Um.
All right.
So what I understand, from what I understand, because I remember a little bit of what I was told, he was talking, and this is, I think, a really important thing for me, is he was talking about, from what I saw, where he had said, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." And I think that's a really important thing, who you surround yourself with, because the top 5 people that you hang out with and you surround yourself with, you become. So for example, if I have 5 worldly friends, okay, very worldly friends, very secular friends, okay, and I'm a Christian, and I'm around them all the time, I'm doing all this, I'm gonna become just like them. I'm gonna walk the way they walk. I'm gonna talk the way they talk. I'm gonna do the things they do. But if I surround myself with very godly people, I'm gonna walk the way they walk. I'm gonna walk they talk. I'm gonna do what they do. You know. So he's not literally saying, "Tell me who your friends are. I'll tell you exactly what's happening. I'm gonna tell you every single little detail. You're gonna turn right on Hilton Avenue. You're gonna go eat at McDonald's. You're gonna order number 43." It's not that. It's saying that I show me your friends, and I'll show you what's gonna happen, and what's gonna happen, and how you're gonna start acting, and the change that's gonna happen. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. I will say one thing I wanted to touch on was Saturday night service. That was a really powerful message. So the pastor was talking about, you are an arrow, not a target. Now, when he was talking about a target, what he meant by that was, in this world, especially this generation, we're targets for depression, um, anxiety, all these things that way. Well, I just realized why do I have this? Okay. So so we have all these things, where targets, like I said, anxiety, depression, a bit of a touchy subject here that I won't get into, suicidal thoughts, all these things. We're targets to that, but we're meant to be an arrow. And he was talking about how there was all the part, the tip of the arrow, the fletching, and the body. But he was talking about, and what really hit me was everyone wants to be on the side of fame and all that. Excuse me, but do they have the character for it? Do they have the character to back it up? You know, that just really really stuck out to me. You know, I really kind of felt, and that kind of hit me. And that kind of stuck with me. You know.
I think that point that he made about everybody has their own type of strong suits and what they're good at and what God designed them to be good at was really good, because sometimes we can forget that God made us so intentionally, that he set us apart with certain abilities and things that we're good at, so that one day we can be used by him for those abilities.
Yes. That's, I believe, what Saturday morning, Melissa Graham spoke on. No, it wasn't her. Someone, I forget who it was, spoke on God's purpose is intentional. I thought. I really feel like someone spoke on that. I could be wrong on that. One thing I really want to talk about again on Saturday night was, so worship was led by Nate Diaz of Elevation Rhythm. I believe it was the whole Elevation Rhythm band was there. I at least know two of them were. But so they have this song called "Goodbye Yesterday." I really think that's a really personal song. Not just for me, but I think for everyone. Because I mean, if you look at that chorus, it says "Goodbye yesterday. I'm living in the light of a new day. I won't waste another minute in my old ways. Praise the Lord, I've been born again." That's such a personal thing. Because the way he led into it, he said he said so many things, but he said goodbye fear, goodbye anxiety, goodbye. He said all these goodbye things, and then he said, goodbye yesterday, and they got into that, and man, something was just there. You know, um, it felt different. The Spirit of the Lord was really there, and that was such like an an amazing moment. Because I feel like a lot of times, people, they feel so way down and stuck, they don't realize they can. They lean on them. They're like, I'm strong enough. I got this. I mean, the Bible says, trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding and strength. And people do that, and they don't realize they can say goodbye yesterday, and lean on the Lord, and get out of that. People kind of dig themselves into a hole. You know, and they start looking for a way out of that hole, but they don't realize that it's right in front of them, and that answer is the Lord, and they can say goodbye yesterday.
A lot of the atmosphere during that worship service was not only because, I mean, it's a great song, right? But a lot of it was so personal to these people. And
Yes.
it wasn't just the lyrics, it was a prayer for somebody.
Yes.
It was an answer to somebody's prayer to be able to say goodbye to all of these things that I don't want to live in anymore. And
Exactly.
a hello to a new start with Jesus Christ.
Exactly. Now, I mean, that's not to say, because I was talking with my father about this. When you think you say goodbye, so you're running with Jesus, it's still not easy. You know, there's still, just because you're saved does not mean that it's not hard. In fact, it gets harder. Because there's a lot more attacks when that happens. That's when it gets a lot harder. You know.
A lot of our situations on earth can look so big, but it really takes just coming back and looking at Jesus was the first one to suffer. Like,
Exactly.
he bore the cross for us and went through these things so that one day we could have a relationship with him
Yes.
and understand. And if he didn't go through these hard things, we wouldn't have been able to relate to him in that.
Yes. And that's such an interesting thing to think about, is that Jesus relates to us, and he oh, I hate to reference these ads, but he gets us. I'm looking at you. He gets us. Better stop making those ads. Anyway, but he does get us, and he sympathizes with us, and he relates to us, and that doesn't and I feel like that kind of sounds like I'm okaying sin. It does not, but he has the sympathy, you know, kind of building off what you said with that relation, you know. And I think that's a really powerful thing to think about, you know.
Like the God of the universe and the God that created us still wants relationship with us after
Yes,
everything that we've done to sin
exactly.
against him.
And that he loved us so much and wanted that relationship with us that he sent his son to come down and die for us. Now that's not to say that he was born to die, because that is what I made it sound like. Um, you know, because when you look in the Bible, before he had passed away or was crucified, and before Judas even sold him to the Pharisees, he had said, I had that. It's in John. No, it's in Luke. Ooh, I forget exactly where it is. But he said, "I have accomplished everything you sent me here to do," and that's such a powerful thing to think about. You know that he humbled himself for 33 years. He never once was like, "Oh, I'm God. You gotta bow down to me because I'm so amazing and wonderful." No, he was humble. You know, like it's such an amazing thing to think about that the all-knowing, omnipotent creator of the universe was that humble, and we're over here bragging like we got something to brag about.
That was an amazing point.
Thanks. Because we're not all that. If
No.
if God's walking here on Earth and He's not bragging, why are we bragging? Because there's nothing for us to brag about. We're horrible people.
And I mean, what do we have to brag about?
Exactly. You are totally right on that. Um, I think so. Saturday morning service. I want to talk about that a little bit. I think that was a very important one for people, not even people, for anyone. Well, yes, people. What am I talking about? Yes, people in this day and age, because she was talking about the reflection you see in the mirror. You know, and that's such a powerful thing because a lot of people in this day and age suffer from the kind of body image issues. And I don't want to get dark there, but and you know they worry about that and worry about how the world sees them. But the only thing that matters is that how God sees you and how if you're being the reflection of Him that you're made because you're made in His image. You know, and I think if everyone in this day and age realized that they were made in God's image and that it does not matter what the world thinks, but only He thinks, I think that would change a lot of the things, you know?
And I think there's a part in Romans that talks about we all fall sin, or we all fall short of the glory of God.
Yes.
But at the same time, He knew that we would and still cares about us.
Yes.
And we mess up every day, but we were still created by God for Him. We can still be used by Him, although we have messed up.
Yes.
He was there and picked us up off the ashes and turned us
Yes.
into something that we can go to these Winterfest type of things, or even just to our church or a group or whatever it may be. We can go to these things and be able to glorify Him not only there, but also bring it back into our daily lives.
Yes. No, I agree with that. Actually, I want to ask, what was Sunday morning service about?
A lot of Sunday morning service was about how sometimes, so the guy that was preaching used an example about he had been begging his dad for a present for Christmas, and when he got around to opening it, it wasn't what he was after, but it turned out to be something so much better.
Okay. I think that's a really good way we can kind of conceptualize blessings because we ask for this one thing, you know, but then it becomes this whole other thing that's bigger and better than we could have imagined. You know, because if someone were to pray and say, because I'm sure this is the thing that's happened, if someone says, "Hey God, I'm in a bit of a financial struggle, just help me find a way to get enough money just to make it through," and then they get more than enough what they need to just continue making it. You know, it's not saying everyone who prays becomes a billionaire. You know, but God comes through. You know, and it's better and bigger than you could have possibly imagined. You know?
And touching back on the Saturday, I think it was night service maybe, they were talking about how there was a robbery that had went on, and a guy was going through some financial issues, and he went and he planned to rob a bank. Well, he robbed the bank. He only got about $6,000, and he got caught. But after he went to prison, he realized that the thing that he used in the robbery was actually worth more than what he got in the
It was
first
worth
place.
$100,000. So if he stopped and saw what he had, he would have realized.
I think that was a great example
It really was.
of how sometimes we get distracted, and when we come back to the Father, we can realize that He's already given us everything that we'd ever need.
Yes.
But we have to go to Him and receive it.
Exactly. 'Cause a lot of times people get so caught up in the moment, they don't stop and think, what has God given me? But they're also not thinking, they're thinking, what do I want? What do I want? Not, what do I have? What do I have? What do I have? Because when you stop and think about what you have, you realize just how fortunate you actually are. You know? That's when you really realize how fortunate you are, is when you realize everything you have. Even if it's not a lot, that's more than other people have. So you need to realize how fortunate you are and all the blessings that you don't realize that you have. You know? Because if you have a bed to sleep in, just a bed, if you don't even have a pillow, just a bed, you're still more fortunate than a lot of other people. So you just need to stop and realize every single thing you have, no matter how all these little things, are so important, and that's so perfect. Yeah.
Sometimes we forget that God has given us so much, and something I say a lot is, God, thank you for the small things that I didn't notice, but that
Yes.
you still appeared in.
Because those are oftentimes, I feel like, a lot of the best things.
Like, for instance, man, I've got green eyes, but what if I wanted blue eyes? Somebody out there is like, man, I really wish I had this.
Exactly.
It's not even about eyes, it's just, in general, what if the thing that you've been praying for is something that somebody already has, but they're not thanking God for it?
Yeah. I think what people oftentimes don't realize is the very thing that they've been praying for or that they want is right under their nose and they don't even see it. So it's just another stop, think, pray, and broaden your view. Because a lot of times we kind of think in like a tunnel vision. We go like here, but we don't even think to broaden our scope to out here. Yeah. You got any questions back there?
Refresh my memory on what you just said. I zoned out.
We're talking about how a lot of times people kind of tunnel vision and they don't broaden their scope and see all the things that they have or like the blessings that they've been praying for, but they don't realize are there.
How do you broaden your scope?
So to broaden your scope, I'm going to use an example. I was looking for this watch today, okay, that I'm wearing. And my narrow view was it is somewhere, but it wasn't in the most obvious place that it should have been. So I stopped, broadened my scope, and said, it's right there. So what I'm saying is, that didn't make any sense. Stop. Whatever you do, when you're thinking about it, you need to stop, audibly tell yourself stop, slow down, and think. And start praying, and start thinking about all these things. Said, Lord, in these situations, was it there? And when you stop and think about that, I think you'll see that it was there, and you just didn't realize it. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Great. Yeah. Well. Oh, I didn't even realize that was there. Oh my gosh, I forgot that was there. Do you have anything else you would like to say? Got any more questions? All right. Well, this has been a phenomenal episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, I think that's all we got. So, tune in next time. We're going to be talking about, I don't know. And thank you so much for watching, listening. Audio listeners, love you to death. That's Joel's thing. I hate saying it. Audio listeners, love you to death. Thank you so much for sticking with us. This was a bit longer than our normal ones. He said you audio listeners are the real ones because you can't hear them. They are the real ones. Yeah. So thank you so much for sticking with us. Whenever you're listening to this, hope you have a phenomenal day. If you're listening to it at night, evening, whenever, have a good rest of your day. If it's evening, good day. at any point before. Bye.